I'm Heather Davids, and I've been vetting candidates at Sign Technologies for 8 years. Not the most glamorous job title as a technical recruiter, but I take pride in my work. My coffee-stained notebook contains a carefully compiled list of red flags, inconsistent date formats, vague job descriptions using buzzwords like leveraged synergies, and references who answer on the first ring sounding suspiciously rehearsed. I can spot a fake certification from 3 paragraphs away, and I've saved this company from hiring disasters more times than anyone bothers to count. Sign Technologies develops cybersecurity software for financial institutions, housed in a gleaming 15-story building in downtown Seattle. Our lobby features a digital wall displaying real-time threat analytics, impressive to clients, terrifying when you understand what the numbers mean. We can't afford to hire the wrong people. One bad developer with access to our systems could compromise millions of customer accounts, triggering federal investigations and destroying careers overnight. That's why I've always been meticulous, sometimes annoyingly so. My colleagues joke that I've memorized every certification program's formatting quirks, from the subtle font changes in Microsoft certifications after 2019 to the specific watermark patterns on Cisco credentials, and can smell embellished work experience like burnt coffee. Amanda Torres became my manager 18 months ago, fresh from business school with an MBA from Northwestern and grand ideas about modernizing our processes. Her corner office overlooks Elliott Bay, decorated with motivational posters about disruptive innovation and a whiteboard covered in efficiency metrics. She's brilliant, I'll give her that, but she treats recruiting like a numbers game rather than a craft. Speed over thoroughness. Efficiency over intuition. Her favorite phrase is "move fast and break things," which sounds progressive until you realize we're dealing with cybersecurity. We'd clashed before over my excessive background checks. Last month, she questioned why I spent 3 hours verifying a candidate's claimed blockchain expertise, complete with phone calls to former colleagues and a deep dive into GitHub repositories. The candidate withdrew when I discovered his lead developer role was actually a 2-week unpaid internship at a startup that folded before launching. Amanda wasn't pleased with the time investment, despite dodging a bullet that could have cost us our largest client. Tuesday morning started normally until Amanda called me into her office at precisely 9:17 a.m. I remember checking my phone as I walked down the hallway lined with employee achievement photos, wondering if I'd finally made it onto the wall. Her smile was too bright, the kind that means bad news is coming, like when dentists say you might feel a little pressure. "Heather, I've been thinking about the Morrison account hiring panel," she began, referring to our biggest client's expansion project. "We need to bring fresh energy to our evaluation process." My stomach dropped. I'd been preparing for weeks, reviewing technical requirements and crafting targeted interview questions on index cards that now felt useless in my jacket pocket. My laptop contained detailed research on industry standards and salary benchmarks for the Morrison account. "I'm removing you from the panel. Nothing personal, but your approach can be thorough to a fault. Sometimes that scares away good candidates." The words hit like a slap. 8 years of expertise dismissed as being thorough to a fault. I wanted to argue, to defend my track record, but her mind was clearly made up. "Who's replacing me?" I managed to ask. "Tyler from marketing will handle the soft skills assessment, and I'll personally review their technical backgrounds." Tyler, 26 years old, hired 6 months ago from a digital marketing agency, whose idea of technical vetting was asking candidates if they like computers and whether they'd heard of Python, the programming language, not the snake, he'd clarify with a nervous laugh. I nodded and left her office, my face burning with humiliation and anger. That afternoon, I watched from my desk as Amanda and Tyler interviewed 5 candidates for our senior software architect position in Conference Room B, the one with the broken air conditioning that always ran too cold. I tried to focus on other tasks, updating job postings and reviewing expense reports, but I couldn't help overhearing fragments of conversation through the thin walls that barely muffled normal conversation, let alone enthusiastic interviews. "Impressive blockchain portfolio," Tyler's voice carried through the thin walls. 10 years of Python experience? Fantastic. Led a team of 20 developers? We love leadership. Each comment made me wince. I'd learned to listen for what candidates didn't say, to probe for specifics when they made broad claims. But Tyler was accepting everything at face value, and Amanda seemed focused on her laptop during most interviews. By Thursday, they'd made their decision. Jackson Mills, 32, claiming extensive experience with our exact technology stack, Available to start immediately despite supposedly leaving a senior position, and willing to work for slightly below our typical budget range. On paper, he looked perfect. His resume was formatted impeccably, his cover letter hit every keyword, and his LinkedIn profile had professional headshots and glowing recommendations. Too perfect. That evening, I couldn't resist pulling up his resume one more time on my home laptop, a cup of chamomile tea growing cold beside me. Something nagged at me about his timeline. His LinkedIn showed him working at Quantum Solutions from 2018 to 2023, but a quick Google search revealed that Quantum Solutions had been acquired by Tech Global Industries and dissolved in 2021. The company's website now redirected to a generic "this domain may be for sale" page. I dug deeper. His claimed certification from the Cybersecurity Institute had a certificate number format CSI 2023-7749 that didn't match their current system, which switched to alphanumeric codes in 2022. The certificate image looked slightly pixelated when I zoomed in, suggesting possible digital manipulation. Small details, but they added up to a pattern that made my investigative instincts scream. Friday morning, I debated whether to voice my concerns while staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, practicing different ways to phrase my findings. Amanda had made it clear my input wasn't wanted, but my conscience wouldn't let me stay silent. I approached her office around 10 a.m., armed with printed screenshots and detailed notes. "Amanda, I noticed some inconsistencies in Jackson Mills's background. Mind if I share what I found?" Her expression hardened. "Heather, we've been through this. The decision is made. Jackson starts Monday, and frankly, your tendency to nitpick is exactly why you're not on this panel anymore. But his previous company doesn't exist anymore, and his certification." "Enough." She held up her hand. "I verified his credentials myself. He's qualified, enthusiastic, and exactly what we need. Please respect my decision." I left feeling frustrated but not entirely surprised. Amanda had invested her credibility in this hire. Admitting concerns now would mean acknowledging she'd rushed the process. Later that afternoon, I ran into Roberto Martinez, our head of IT security, at the coffee machine near the break room that always smelled faintly of microwaved fish. Roberto was a 15-year veteran with graying temples and the kind of paranoid attention to detail that made him excellent at his job. He and I had worked together on several investigations, including the incident 2 years ago when we discovered an intern was selling employee contact information to recruiters. "Heard about the new architect hire," he said, stirring his coffee. "Amanda seems excited about this Jackson guy." "She is," I replied carefully. "Though I have some reservations about his background." Roberto raised an eyebrow. "What kind of reservations?" I explained my findings about Quantum Solutions and the certification discrepancy. Roberto listened intently, his expression growing more serious. "You know what? Let me do some checking of my own," he said. Quietly. "If there's something fishy, we need to know before he gets access to our systems." That evening, Roberto called me at home while I was halfway through a frozen dinner and a Netflix documentary about corporate fraud. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Heather, you were right to be concerned. I reached out to a contact at Tech Global Industries, the company that acquired the real Quantum Solutions. Jackson Mills never worked there. Not before the acquisition, not after. My contact checked their entire employee database going back to 2015. My heart sank. "Are you sure?" "Positive. And get this, the phone number he listed for his reference? It goes to a Google Voice account created last month. We had a problem. A big one." Saturday morning, I called Amanda's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message explaining Roberto's findings and asking her to call me back urgently. She didn't. Sunday evening, I tried again. This time she answered, but she was clearly annoyed. "Heather, it's the weekend. Can't this wait?" "Amanda, Jackson Mills fabricated his entire work history. Roberto confirmed it. We can't let him start tomorrow." There was a long pause. "Roberto has no authority over hiring decisions. Neither do you, for that matter. Jackson will start as planned. But what if he's planning something malicious? What if?" "Heather, you're being paranoid. People sometimes embellish their resumes. It doesn't make them criminals." I'm hanging up now. The line went dead. I spent Sunday night barely sleeping, imagining worst-case scenarios. A fraudulent hire with access to our most sensitive systems, client data at risk, and my warnings ignored. I considered going over Amanda's head to her boss, Michael Thompson, but without concrete proof of malicious intent, I'd look like a disgruntled employee undermining my manager. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly. I watched from my desk as Amanda walked Jackson Mills through the office, introducing him to the team. He looked exactly like his LinkedIn photo, confident, well-dressed, charming. If I hadn't done the research, I'd have been impressed too. By noon, Jackson was set up at his workstation with full system access. IT had provided him with admin credentials and access to our development environments. Every minute that passed felt like borrowed time. At 2:30 p.m., Roberto stopped by my desk. "Any word from Amanda about our concerns?" I shook my head. "She's convinced I'm being paranoid." "Well, I'm not convinced. I've been monitoring network traffic from Jackson's workstation. He's accessed some unusual directories for someone supposedly familiarizing himself with our codebase." Before I could respond, we heard a commotion from the development area. Raised voices, someone swearing. Roberto and I hurried over to find Jackson arguing with Emma Chen, one of our senior developers. "I'm telling you, that's not how our authentication system works," Emma was saying, her face flushed with frustration. "I've been doing this for 10 years, Jackson shot back. "I think I know basic security protocols." Emma looked around and spotted Roberto. "Can you help here? This guy is trying to implement a workaround that would bypass our entire security layer." The confrontation with Emma was the catalyst I needed. Within an hour, Jackson's incompetence became undeniable. He couldn't answer basic questions about technologies he claimed to have mastered. Worse, his solutions to simple problems revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of cybersecurity principles. Roberto pulled me aside around 4 p.m. "I've been documenting everything. His network activity, his failed attempts to access systems, his conversations with other developers. This isn't just about a fake resume anymore. This guy doesn't know what he's doing, period." "We need to tell Amanda," I said, though my stomach churned at the thought of another confrontation. "Actually, I think we should go straight to Michael Thompson. Amanda's too invested in this hire to think clearly." We found Michael in his office, reviewing quarterly reports. As VP of Operations, he had ultimate authority over hiring decisions and took security breaches seriously. "Michael, we have a situation with the new architect hire," Roberto began, and we laid out everything: the fabricated work history, the fake references, Jackson's incompetence, and Amanda's refusal to listen to our concerns. Michael's expression grew increasingly grim as we talked. When we finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're telling me we have someone with full system access who lied about his entire background, and Amanda knew about your concerns but chose to ignore them?" "That's correct," Roberto confirmed. Michael reached for his phone. "Security will escort Jackson out immediately. We'll revoke all his access and conduct a full audit of what he may have seen or done." He looked at me. "Heather, I want a complete report on your investigation process. We need to understand how this happened and make sure it never happens again." As security walked Jackson out, I felt a mixture of relief and vindication. But there was still the matter of Amanda's role in this disaster. The next morning, Michael called an emergency meeting with Amanda, Roberto, myself, and Diane Walsh from HR. Amanda walked in looking confident, apparently unaware of the previous day's developments. "I understand we had some technical difficulties with our new hire," she began, but Michael cut her off. "Amanda, Jackson Mills was removed from the premises yesterday after we discovered he fabricated his entire employment history. Heather and Roberto brought these concerns to you multiple times, and you chose to ignore them." The color drained from Amanda's face. What do you mean fabricated?" Roberto presented his findings methodically. "The fake company history, the bogus references, the evidence of technical incompetence." With each revelation, Amanda seemed to shrink further into her chair. "Furthermore," Michael continued, "our security audit revealed that Jackson attempted to access classified client data multiple times. We're treating this as a potential security breach. The immediate crisis required swift action." Michael put me in charge of damage control while Amanda was suspended pending a full investigation. My first priority was assessing what information Jackson might have accessed and informing affected clients. Working with Roberto and the IT security team, we traced every file Jackson had opened, every system he'd attempted to access. Fortunately, our security protocols had prevented him from reaching the most sensitive data, but he'd still seen internal development documents and client project outlines. I spent the next 3 days crafting communications to our clients, explaining the situation without causing panic. The Morrison account, the one that had started this whole mess, required special attention. I called their CTO directly. "James, this is Heather Davids from Sign Technologies. I need to inform you about a security incident that may have affected your project." The conversation was difficult but necessary. James appreciated our transparency and quick response, though he made it clear that future incidents would jeopardize our relationship. Meanwhile, I worked with HR and Michael to completely overhaul our hiring process. We implemented mandatory background verification for all technical roles, required multiple references to be contacted by phone, and established a policy that no candidate could start without clearance from both HR and the hiring manager's supervisor. The most challenging part was rebuilding trust within the team. Emma Chan and other developers felt betrayed by the security lapse, and morale had taken a hit. I organized team meetings to discuss the new protocols and address concerns. "How do we know this won't happen again?" Emma asked during one session. "We can't guarantee perfection," I replied honestly, "but we can learn from this mistake." The new process includes safeguards that would have caught Jackson's deception before he ever walked through our doors. Tyler from marketing, who had been part of the original hiring panel, was notably quiet during these discussions. Later, he approached me privately. "Heather, I owe you an apology. I should have listened when you tried to share your concerns about the process. I was in over my head, but I was too proud to admit it." His humility was refreshing, and it marked the beginning of a more collaborative relationship between departments. 2 weeks later, Amanda's suspension became a termination. The investigation revealed that her eagerness to streamline hiring had led her to skip several standard verification steps, not just with Jackson but with 3 previous hires. Fortunately, the others had been legitimate, but the pattern of negligence was clear. Michael offered me Amanda's position as Director of Talent Acquisition, with authority over all hiring decisions and a mandate to rebuild our recruiting standards. The promotion felt bittersweet, vindication mixed with regret that it had taken a near disaster to get here. My first act as director was to establish a red team approach to candidate evaluation, where one person's job was specifically to find flaws in applications. Roberto agreed to serve on this team for technical roles, bringing his security expertise to bear on potential hires. We also implemented what I called the Jackson Protocol, a mandatory waiting period between job offer and start date, during which we conduct enhanced background checks. It's not popular with eager candidates, but it's non-negotiable. 3 months later, the Morrison account renewed their contract and even expanded our scope of work. James mentioned that our handling of the security incident had actually increased their confidence in our processes. "Most companies would have tried to hide something like that," he told me during a project review. "Your transparency and quick action showed us you take security seriously." Tyler has become one of my most trusted collaborators, and his marketing background brings valuable perspective to candidate experience improvements. Roberto and I meet weekly to review any flags in our hiring pipeline. As for Jackson Mills, we reported his fraudulent activities to relevant authorities and industry organizations. Whether anything comes of it, I don't know, but future employers will have fair warning. Sometimes I wonder if I should have pushed harder earlier, found a way to make Amanda listen before Jackson ever set foot in our office. But I've learned that you can't force people to hear inconvenient truths. All you can do is document your concerns, speak up when it matters, and be ready to act when the opportunity arises. The whole experience taught me that being thorough isn't a fault, it's exactly what protects organizations from the kind of disaster we narrowly avoided. Now, when someone suggests we need fresher perspectives on hiring, I smile and remind them that sometimes the freshest perspective is the one that's learned from experience.